Hey everyone, David Petrangelo here with a little bit of housekeeping and some fun news about the podcast and the show and more. First and foremost, we have a special October planned. If you are listening to this in October of 2023, stay tuned on our social media accounts at Remember64 Show and at Jiggy Lookback, because we will be teaming up to do a special couple of episodes, but not just that, but a live stream towards the end of the month. And we're going to be picking a scary / Halloween themed game. We're going to be playing it together, sort of speedrun it in a way together, and we're also going to be doing some giveaways. We might have some games, some t-shirts, some stickers, and all that's going to be on YouTube. The two of us will be co-streaming, and we will be having a great time with that, so we hope you'll join us. And on top of that, between now, October 2023, until the end of the year, you can help us raise money for our local sick kids hospitals. That is through the donations of Extra Life and the charity of Extra Life. You can find our team. It's called Retro Game Guys, and you will get the link in the show notes as well. We are also team number 65216. Now, that sounds very complicated and everything, but really all it is a place to take you to our team, which collectively, Jiggy and I, will be raising money for to send that money to our local sick kids hospital. With this, there will be incentives for people to, get giveaways, or there will be milestones if we hit them. We'll have to do something silly on stream, for example, or play a really bad game or anything like that. We're going to be customizing that page as time goes on, but as of the first week of October, that page is now live. It is Extra Life. We are the team called Retro Game Guys, and you can donate as little as just $1. Everything will be going to the Sick Kids Hospital and to Extra Life. And as they always say with these types of donations and fundraising, every dollar helps. Here at Remember 64, we are very happy to be a part of the Tokyo Beat Podcast Network. Welcome to Remember 64, where this week we're hacking and slashing through a nightmare. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is David Petrangelo, and I'm trotting around 1830s, not 1930s. Wow, I got this terribly wrong right off the bat. And I'm trotting around 1830s looking for a fresh, hot tea in this rainy London evening. Ooh, this shop looks nice and cozy. Oh shit, what just popped out of that window? And it's trying to kill me. What is that, a giant member of the Blue Man Group? Oh god, and a giant killer bat? What is happening? Maybe I should just get out of here. This tea is definitely not worth it. Where's the closest Starbucks?
Dark creatures of the night, beware my staff. I will fight you, and I will win. I will cut some of you in half with my ferocious kicks. Others I will poke in the face with my stick repeatedly until you are damaged beyond repair. Falling rubble barely phases me. I have cheat codes. I probably shouldn't have admitted that. Docks, winter, random gargoyles flying at my face? I don't care. I can take it all, because I am Father Ignatius, defender of truth and defeater of nightmares.
And if you didn't know, Jiggy Lookback, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Amazing.
I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped to talk about a spoopy game, and this is rare on the Nintendo 64. And I had to turn the lights out, except for the cool ones. But it's a little bit darker in my room. Pretty cool.
It is a little bit, yeah. And if you're listening to this and you've listened to past episodes and stuff, we're doing something a little bit different. We're trying to mix up the formats a little bit and do something fun and all that. So we're going to go through the entire episode together instead of just listening to me talk for about 5 to 7 minutes off the bat. So you don't have to worry about that part. You don't have to just get bored with my voice. But Jiggy and I are going to be talking about Nightmare Creatures. That is the current game in the rotation. We are doing this spooky/scary horror season in the middle of October, and if you didn't know already, you're right. The whole horror and scary game thing was just not that evident on the N64, which is sort of interesting because it's so
and this is
big
rated
and popular.
M for mature, which is another kind of. There's a handful of games on the 64 that are rated M, but few and far between. I mean, really, it was the fun machine, right? It was the fun machine, not the scary machine. You know, it kind of went against what Nintendo did. I will say though that now that I'm really thinking about Nightmare Creatures and we have the logo blown up on the screen, it's giving me Jim Henson Muppet vibes. I don't know. It's got kind of a, you know what I'm saying? It's got kind of a not Pan's Labyrinth, Dark Crystal kind of a look to it.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Dark Crystal's a good one. Henson Company. Yeah, that's actually, you know what? Yep. We'll get into sort of the enemies and all that kind of thing, but they could very easily just be giant puppets. That's kind of the way they move a lot of them, or at least some of them do for sure. That's true. That really makes sense. The setting is dark, obviously. The subject matter is dark. I get.
And then when I take my stick and I shove it up them, it's kind of like they are puppets, you know?
Unless they break into pieces, and then it's no, my puppets, no, oh god.
Well, then you just have the top half of a zombie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I usually slice the zombies in half, though. So, so before we get into the meat of the episode, talk about a little bit of the history and about the development and obviously us playing the game itself. Of course, as always, the housekeeping stuff right off the top is where I want to get to first. Patreon.com/Remember64Show is where you can support a show like this, get episodes like this, the audio and video versions early for as little as $1 a month. Obviously, you can find these on YouTube as well. We'll have the episodes up, video versions, including some silly shorts that I come up with because I think I'm funny, and I think people may think I'm funny or make fun of me. I don't know. But that's where you can find more stuff about the show and across.
That you think you're funny.
People think it's funny that I think I'm funny. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to keep telling myself that. So, so Patreon is where you can support the show as it grows. Patreon's doing some pretty significant changes over the next month or few weeks. So, keep an eye on that on our page, or even others, or just in general on Patreon, because we might be doing even more and more there. They're actually implementing a lot of things that will have free content as well. So it's not just going to be a place where things are put behind paywalls and all that. So just keep an eye on Patreon, especially our page. You'll see us post about it on social media and everything as well. At Remember64Show is where you can find all that stuff. But I'm not the only one here that does content. Jiggy, what about your stuff, man? Let's get that out there too.
Oh man, well I will not detract from your Patreon whatsoever. That is not me. I say go become a patron of the Remember 64 show, and supporting Dave supports me in that aspect because I think this is a really cool show, and I think the Patreon for it is going to have a lot of really cool content that I'm looking forward to being a part of. So it's super cool. And just piggybacking over that, as always, I'm on all social media. I'm on all the socials. I got your TikToks. I got your Spacebook. Actually, I'm not on Spacebook now that I said that. But I got Exeter, and YouTube. YouTube's the only one that I say the actual name because that's my bread and butter. That is the one that I love to be on all the time. I love starting arguments and comments about which character is stronger or better. And it will be totally my opinion, but I will totally state it like it's a fact and fight to the death. But yeah, my content's really growing. A lot of cool stuff. You just got to go check it out for yourself. Super cool. Gonna have Dave on my content soon. So, doing a little reverse collab.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We've been doing it this way for a while. We're gonna flip the script, and he's gonna come on Jiggy Look Back YouTube. So there's gonna be some cool things. Things.
The epic crossover event of the winter.
Yes. Across the 64 verse.
Across the 60. Yeah, that's, you know what? That's exactly what it is.
There it is.
Also, too, if anyone is listening to this in the middle of October of 2023, really fun thing we're going to do. We are going to be playing another, well, it's not really a scary game.
Oh, it's scary.
Unless the gameplay is scary, I don't know. But we are going to be, we're going to be not only playing the Scooby-Doo game for the N64. What's the full title again? I should have that in front of me.
Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers.
Classic Creep Capers. Okay, tongue twister. But we are not only going to be playing that for an episode, which you'll also have obviously on your audio feed and on YouTube, but we're going to be streaming playing that together on October the 20th. That is the evening right now that we have chosen for that. Pretty sure we're going to stick to it. Stay tuned to social media in case that does change. But October 20th of 2023 is where you'll find that. Also, we'll have the version and the VOD of that up as well, so you can watch that on the Remember 64.
I'm looking to bring in a special guest.
Exactly. I was just going to say, it is us, but we also have special guests. We're going to have some giveaways as well. We're also going to be...
Sweet giveaways.
Jiggy showed me what at least one of the giveaways, there's going to be more, but at least one of the giveaways is pretty damn cool. And yes, it is N64 and Scooby-Doo themed. So really sweet cross-section of stuff right there. But stay tuned. It's probably going to be around 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be somewhere around there that we're going to start. Again, watch the social media feeds to sort of confirm exactly what time we're going to start. But we're going to live stream playing the game. It's not a super long game. We're going to do our best to play through the entire thing. And that is also going to be the episode that you will hear on your feed as well. But if you want to be there with us live, check out Jiggy's YouTube channel or the Remember 64 YouTube channel. We will be co-streaming at the same time and kind of doing fun competition type things as we go and messing with our gameplay.
I think it's important to note that you might want to put up 2 browser windows because we're going to be playing this game at the same time, and you might want to look and see what I'm doing. You might want to look and see what he's doing. We're going to be chatting through the whole way, but things might get a little hectic, and they might get a little competitive, and they might get a little treacherous and difficult, you could say.
I am all for it. It's going to happen. We're going to find we're sort of going through some of the ideas that we're going to do, but they are going to be as wacky as we possibly can. I think that's a good word to use. I think we're gonna make them wacky. How about that?
Wacky.
Scooby-Doo is wacky. The Mystery Machine and the gang is wacky. Why not us too? So so find that in October. That'll also be on your audio feed afterwards. But if you want to be with us live, find us there, and also make sure you follow our social media feeds, which is where you'll see all the updated information about that. So Jiggy Look Back is where you can find Jiggy, and myself will be at Remember 64 Show. Other than that, man, let's talk a little bit about nightmare creatures. Let's bust out the history books, Jiggy. We're heading back to November. We're heading back to November of 1998. Okay. If anyone doesn't know, it was. If anyone doesn't know, I sort of grabbed the synopsis of what Nightmare Creatures is and the sort of setting. So I'm going to read this. I can't remember exactly where I got this from. Terrible with sources. I work in the news industry and I still didn't write down the source. But anyways, here we go. In 1834, on London's blackest eve, a secret cult known as the Brotherhood...
Wait, I'm going to stop you right here. Okay? You need to think more. You need to get into character. Okay? It's the spoopy season. This is London. You need some sort of Cockney accent.
Well, it sounds like you have it all figured out, sir. Would you care to do this? It's all you.
All right. I am sorry for the listeners who get who this is your offended culture. Okay. But here we go. In 1834, on London's blackest eve, a secret cult known as the Brotherhood of Hecate rediscovered the key to the man's unholiest fears. Going a little Australian, but that's okay. It was through this arcane act of terror that the evil leader of the Brotherhood, Adam Crowley, swore to take over the world. Ever since this fateful night, not a London street, alley, or town square has escaped the screams of nightmare creatures.
Golf clap,
Spice it
sir.
up a
Golf
little
clap. Lovely, lovely, lovely. No, you definitely did it much better than I would have done it. You're correct.
Nah,
You
you
were
could have
right.
done it. I wanted to
I don't
hear
think
it.
so. I
It'll
honestly
happen
don't
before
think
the
so.
night's end.
It'll, it'll happen before we're done.
Stay tuned.
Okay, stay tuned, everybody. Okay, so we have some couple notes about the development, but as we've sort of been talking about even before we hit record, there's actually not as much about the specific development for the N64, especially that we're kind of surprised. I think we're both surprised that there's not like a little bit of a longer sort of text about that. This was initially, though, a PlayStation 1 game and was ported a year later to the N64, which we have seen in other games. One of the most popular versions of this, which wasn't even the next year, I think it was 3 or 4 years later, was Mega Man 64, which was a big sort of title that they hyped up and everything, and then everyone was sort of semi-disappointed because they were like, wait a second, this is just a port of the same game. You made it sound like it was something new. Anyways, Nightmare Creatures, somewhat similar situation. Obviously, there's technical limitations going from a CD-based game to a cartridge. But this was made by Callisto Entertainment, a French video game development company, founded by Nicolas Gaume, I think is Gaume.
Yeah, that's what I would have said.
Gaume. Yeah. I should know that. I have a little bit of French knowledge in me, being a Canadian, but I don't know. So the company,
I'm a little French too. I don't know.
I thought you were British based on the text you just read. So
That's company.
Callisto was initially called Altride Concept or Altride Concept in around 1990 when it was founded. I looked this up in games that they made because I always want to see like where did they originate from? How did they go from this? How did they go from one thing to something like Nightmare Creatures, right? They made this like weird 2D scrolling Pac-Man game called Pac-in-Time for the Game Gear. I'm not sure if it was a port. I'm not sure if it was an original game or whatever, but it looks like a very basic 8-bit Game Gear sort of Pac-Man. Doesn't look like anything too special. I think a lot of the sort of Pac-Man offshoots around that time were not very good anyways. Haven't played it. And then there was other smaller titles that they made, only really like a handful for the Amiga in the early 90s. And then they didn't really make anything until Nightmare Creatures for the PS1 and the N64. So like, this is a development studio that lasted about 20 years, but really only made 10 or so games. So it's not a big heavy hitter or anything like that, but a little bit of an interesting sort of thing to go through there. Because like, how do you go from like 2D basic Amiga and Game Gear 2D scrolling games to this, which is completely different?
Yeah, and I will say this is like, whether the quality reflects the amount of work that went into it, you can see that the effort was made to make this a big, like, AAA title. I mean, it wasn't it published by Activision? Did
Yes.
I remember that correctly? So it was published by Activision. You know, so that's the kind of backing you got for this game. Like, they expected this game to be the shiz.
Yeah,
you know,
it's okay. You can say shit. It's okay. We're all adults here, or at least pretend to be adults. You can say it. It's fine.
Maybe next time.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm sure. Definitely, the next game, Scooby Doo, will definitely prove that we're adults, 100%. And doing goofy things on stream will definitely prove that we're adults.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's actually a really good point. Is there's a lot of medium-sized to small studios that work on games for, especially when games were just starting to blow up with the NES and SNES and stuff, and then especially with the 64, there's a lot of these medium-sized companies that are backed by something like Activision, for example, that, yeah, they want this to be this, like, big staple type of game. I mean, even at this time, a couple years into the console cycle, into the life cycle of the N64, there's not that many horror or scary or more adult games. This is the one that they wanted it to be, potentially. Like, this is what they were going for, is getting to a different audience and stuff, not just Mario Kart, Mario Party, and all the typical stuff that you would think of. So
I almost wonder if Nintendo had like a, I mean, I was too young to pay attention to things like that, right? And I know they generally have a kid-friendly vibe about them. you know,
Yep.
and not to say that all their games like have necessarily not adult elements to it. Like they kind of appeal to all ages and they have this wide variety as far as that, but they don't have any that really like specifically are geared toward adults. And I don't know if that was like a criticism, and this game was like one that they thought, oh, we could try to push to have this on our console, you know, or like we could take a scary game too. You know what I mean? Like it almost
We
feels
could play
like
with
this
the
is
older kids at recess.
yeah,
Like,
because there's only a handful of games like this on the console, and you're
yeah.
like, well, we could do it. You know, the PlayStation isn't the home of all the adult games because they had Resident Evil, and it's like you think the 64 got Resident Evil 2. That it got one, and it was like
Yeah. And
you know,
it's
and I know some of
I
that is the CD based limitations, but
yeah,
still,
yeah, yeah. Well, the fact that I mean, we talked about this in the episode that I did. I actually it's about a year ago now, in 2022, when I talked about and played Resident Evil 2 for the 64. The fact that that thing runs on the 64 is just insane to me. But it's one of the very few. You're like that. That's the point that we're getting at here, where it's just like, you know, the sort of kid-like or family-friendly nature of Nintendo is always going to be there, I think. But then when you get games like this that stand out, whether it's atmosphere, violence, blood, gore, whatever it might be, like or the controls even, like that are more complicated, for example, like that stuff all plays into an older generation or older age of gamer and stuff. And I think that like this is one of them, and in a number of in all of those things, I think, if not more. So it's really interesting. When I was looking up development and sort of history of this game and stuff, I found you saw this before we record. This is jumping ahead years and years, but there's an article from 2003. So as of this recording where we're sitting, it was almost exactly, I think it was in like June or July of 2003. So over 20 years ago, technically, this article was written that Ubisoft Entertainment Montreal, this is a Toronto-based newspaper, wrote this. So when I clicked on this link, when I looked it up and I clicked on this link, it said, "Are you sure you want to read this? This is 20 years old." Like it actually, Google actually said,
"Of course I do."
Yeah, of course I do. Like
that's what I do.
It is what I do. So it said Ubisoft Entertainment of Montreal, just Ubisoft Montreal as it's known now, has acquired all developing and publishing rights to the related Nightmare Creatures 3, which Nightmare Creatures, only the original, came out for the N64. The 2 came out for PlayStation. Angel of Darkness and Nightmare Creatures trademark. So they, at that time, Ubisoft was like, we're getting this, man. This is us. We got this, like 100%. And at that time, Nightmare Creatures 3 was in sort of early development, I would say, because it was only like a couple years after the sequel or a year after the sequel. But then it says the development of Nightmare Creatures 3 already started by Callisto Entertainment, the company that made this game, is now being handed over to Ubisoft. The game is slated for release on, quote, TV-based consoles in 2004. So 19 years later, we have not seen this 2004 game. So
that's nothing. I've been waiting forever for Banjo 3. I've been waiting forever for Donkey Kong 64. I can wait for Nightmare Creatures 3. Like, I still have hope.
At least one of us does. I just thought that was really interesting, where it's like, yeah, this game came out, you know, in the late 90s. The sequel came out, I think it was like in 2000. They wanted this series to keep going. It obviously had enough of a backing. There was enough depth there that they wanted to keep this going, regardless of what console it actually ended up coming out for, if it did actually come to fruition in the sequels. So we're going to talk about the first one. It is just Nightmare Creatures. It is the only one that came out for the N64. And I'm going to try something new here. This is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, everybody, but we have set up soundboards, and this is how I'm going to cut into and cue into our discussion about the game itself and us playing it. And here it goes. Yes, that is Mr. Crowley himself from Nightmare Creatures.
I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways. Yeah, I think it's Crowley. I would say Crowley. That's the way I said it when I was reading
Crowley
it.
is like, that's the Satanist dude. So you'd assume that a
Yeah.
bad guy would be named after that. But then I heard in like the PS1 like opening cinematics or trailers or something, it was like Crowley, and I was like, yeah, nah, I'm
Oh.
not gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No thanks.
Nah, it's Crowley. Plus,
Um,
like any supernatural fans out there, like Crowley, it's Crowley. Yeah,
oh, okay. That's supernatural thing. Pfft, I wouldn't know.
great show.
I think before we get into the heart of the game itself and talking about the combat and the setting and all the things that we normally talk about, if anyone has not seen the opening crawl of the explanation of the setup of this game, and I'm not sure how many times you watched it, Jiggy. I don't know if you watched it once, moved on, went to the start menu, and just did that. I'm going to play a little bit of audio from what this is, and listeners be warned, it is just noise. Like, I will admit, it is just noise, and creature sounds and stuff, but I'll explain why I find this hilarious, and it's not just because of the sound effects.
My leg.
Oh god! Commentary on the brawl. Oh god, the big blue monster. Oh, big overhand cut. Oh god, here comes the zombie with the knife. Oh, he's on the ground. Okay, dear listeners, basically, if you're not looking at the video version of this, what this is the opening crawl to tell you what the sort of setup of the story of Nightmare Creatures is. It's very short. It's not very long or anything like that. It's very simple. But why I find this hilarious is every time you start the game and you watch this, this is like a randomly generated brawl between like 6 or 7 of the monsters that fight each other while this is going on.
That.
Yeah. So one, why did they do that? And why is there a bunch of just monsters just fighting each other? That's not even what the game is. 2, why is it randomly generated?
Yeah, I did not know that. So I've watched it multiple times. I watched it because it took me a couple sittings to play this game, and every time I
Yes,
boot up,
yes.
it would inevitably go to this state. I never noticed that they were randomly generated. I never noticed that it was slightly different every time. That's crazy.
Yeah, so what happened was I'm sitting here and like recording some of my gameplay and stuff like that as I've done in the past. And I've just like I walked away for a second to record this, and then I came back and it was like playing like the second time or whatever, right? And I go, "Wait, this looks like slightly different." And then I hit reset on the console and I watched it again. And it's like Last Monster Standing sort of thing. It's so funny. And sometimes it actually gets to the point where like there's still a couple left. And because you let it wait for so long, it just goes to the menu. And like there isn't a monster that wins, essentially.
Oh man.
It's such a random, funny decision. I had to mention it. It's so funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and if anyone's watching the video version, I'm just playing sort of part of my gameplay, my very terrible gameplay, I would say. I don't think I'm very good at this game. Playing as Nadia. So the game starts out, and you can choose 2 characters. You can choose a male or female character. I chose Nadia, and chose her from the beginning. And you picked, what was his name again?
I believe it was Ignatius.
Ignatius.
And it's Father Ignatius.
Oh, it's Father. Right.
Father, yes.
Slightly
Father.
different gameplay, I would say, from what I understand. So, is your guy like fast? Did he have like certain moves? Like I'm not sure. Like sort of.
So interesting enough, I played through the whole game as Father Ignatius, but like after I beat the game, I went back and just played the first level as Nadia to see if they were different. And generally, I would say they're very similar. But I think she might be faster slightly, and he has like more range, like with his staff. I think those are the like, and they're not like terribly different, but she overall felt faster to me, which I would have preferred. But I mean, I looked cool, so I can't complain too much.
I thought her moves were cool. I think I picked this game up roughly a year ago or something on one of my emulation devices. Like, I'm just gonna try this game. I've never played it before, and I just went back to her because it was familiar more so is pretty much why I chose her. Me in this like first level, if anyone's watching this as you're watching the video version, I was still kind of figuring out the controls and sort of how things worked and everything. But yeah, there's two different characters, slightly different play styles. But essentially you're using the A button and the B button to do different sort of combos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they do. They do different combos, and they even throw, like, later in the game they throw in C buttons.
Yes.
Which
yes.
I believe is a mistake, but we'll get into that later. The one thing I think is cool is you start out like this is the immediate awesome, right? When playing the game. Okay. So you start out and you hear noises. You're like, clearly there's a monster around me somewhere. You basically just kind of look around a little bit. The game shows you that, hey, this isn't like a linear thing necessarily. Like it is linear, but it's, there's nooks and crannies to go find secret items. So you want to be on the lookout. It's just training you to do that a little bit with these zombie noises right at the beginning. So you go back and you find a zombie and you kill it. And that's where you do, you learn your basic attacks. It's like tapping A 3 times does this, tapping B does this. I don't know if they differentiate A is light, B is heavy or something, or vice versa.
I couldn't tell because B is the weapon and A, at least for Nadia, was kicking. I don't know what it was for you guy.
He kicked too.
Okay.
They both could kick. But the thing
I can't tell if
wanted
one's
to
stronger than the other.
emphasize,
Honestly,
there's like a heavy move that you can do, and it's with the staff, but you have to do it like just right. Mm-hmm. It's like you hold forward on the joystick and press the button, and he would swipe with the staff, and it would cut zombies in half.
Yes.
But it was like only that specific move. Otherwise, you'd have to do a combo. So I was getting good at like feeling that out, and just it was a very satisfying. Like you just be like, whoocha, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone's watching the video and stuff and seen videos and stuff online and everything, like I did that quite a bit. Like only certain characters or only certain monsters that you're fighting that really works with though.
Yeah.
And it is like the zombies or the smaller characters and stuff. Later on in the game, the monsters, like you can do different moves, or it teaches you how to do different moves, or tells you that will chop up parts of the monsters and stuff. We'll get to that part in a little bit, but I think the setup of the game, like the first couple stages, is definitely way simpler than later on in the game, and I think the sort of semi exploration of it makes sense to me and worked. One of the biggest disadvantages to this game, though, I found was you can toggle it on or off, but I think you have to start a new game when you do it. But there's an adrenaline meter on the left side of your screen, and it's this blue bar that if you don't kill a monster within a couple minutes or something like that, somewhere around there, your health starts going down, because I guess it's like your bloodthirst meter in a way or something. I don't know what it is.
If you look at it, it's basically like a combo meter. Okay, so this is how you can think of it.
Yeah.
It's a combo meter, and the game wants you to go and fight enemies and keep your combo up. And if you're not hitting enemies after a while or defeating enemies, it drops steadily. And then once it's gone, it starts draining your health. And so you're basically always on a timer. I hate this mechanic. It's awful. I don't know why they thought this would be a good idea. Because oftentimes, and this is something you'll notice right away. So there's a black fog in the game. Okay. Yeah. So just initial impressions coming into the game, you're like, wow, this is actually a really interesting looking game, because it looks, it's one of the games that I would say looks distinctly PlayStation. And by that, I mean, it has this, like, the textures look really good. But it's got this very specific look. It's a little more pixelated. It's like the details all in the texture, but then you have no, I was gonna say depth of field, but it's not depth of field. It's your distance. It's looking out into the horizon.
It's fog of war. It's literally fog of war. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
and
there's fog in the distance constantly. Yeah, it's black. Yeah.
But you only have like for like, I don't know, 5 feet of visibility. Like it sounds worse as I'm describing it. It's tolerable. It's not like make or breaking the game, but it's
Yeah.
definitely noticeable, you
Yeah,
know?
I think why I gave it a little bit of a pass on. I mean, it's noticeable 100%. One of the reasons why I got a little bit of a pass for me is because this is one of the few games that has something like that, where in a way it makes sense because everything, I'm pretty sure every stage takes place at night. Many of them take place mostly outdoors
It's
and
true.
with like rain or something like that. So it kind of makes sense that there's literally fog and literally darkness.
And it's
And when you
London.
go, and it's and it's London, so there's dark and fogginess all the time. That London fog is coming to get you. And in a way, it kind of keeps like the monsters and things like that sort of hidden in some way. So sometimes they jump out at you. Sometimes they're, you just hear them, which is one of the great things about this game to me is the sound design. I think is pretty decent. As far as the monsters go, when
Hmm.
you're not chipping away at like six of them at once. Prime example, that entrance screen that I played, which if you heard that a minute ago, just sounds like a disaster. So as long as it's only like, oh yeah, you're hitting only one monster or something, or oh hey, there's a monster around the corner, like you said off the top, I have to be aware because I can kind of hear it groaning off to
Yeah.
the side and stuff. I found that pretty cool. Um, but that plays into the setting of the game, which I think is one of the game's strong suits, is that like the setting is pretty good, the setup, all of that kind of stuff to me worked. I don't know about you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think looking into the sound design comment, uh, this is one of the few games, like, I'll just be honest, loving the N64 and playing the games, when a game has a good soundtrack, you really take note of it, like
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie, or Donkey Kong 64 or Mario
Yep.
64. You really lock in and you're like, wow, this game has a really memorable soundtrack because sound and music and things like that is not something that the 64 was known for. The games that did it well did it like 11 out of 10 well, did it
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so
yeah.
memorable. But oftentimes the soundtracks, especially when there are ports from other consoles like the PlayStation that had the memory to play these full length songs, those cartridges, they had to compress, they had to squeeze them in, they had to fit them into loops and get it going. I know we shout out to the other episode we did on Toy Story 2 because that was a comment. We heard the songs, you would hear 30 seconds of a song and it would loop.
Yeah.
Whereas other versions it would play the full length, and it's kind of the case here. I'm feeling I want to look at the original. I almost want to play the PlayStation version or the PC version and just get a different experience and see a little more what was intended. I know that the
Right.
64 version generally looks a little better than the PlayStation version, but already I know that we missed the cutscene at the beginning, although it's cool about the random generation of the monster fighting. I didn't know that. But
I don't
like
know if that's like
we
a shared thing or not, but
right. We
I didn't look that up. I honestly just discovered it. So
That's cool. That's
yeah.
cool. But like you see we get the on the 64 version you get the monsters fighting and you get text scrolling on the screen.
Right.
Which is a little better than what I'm used to. Usually they show like a screenshot or something,
Yep.
and this is like we actually get an animation little cutscene kind of a thing. So that's kind of cool. But the PlayStation gets full video cutscenes, and it
Mm-hmm.
has Crowley like in a laboratory experimenting on a body, like just really really cool stuff. And we're just missing that. And I'm not gonna hold that against the 64 version because I'm purely looking at this. I just wanted to bring that to light because I wanted to go back to the sound design in that comment about losing some fidelity and losing length of songs. I agree that the monsters sound cool, and it's cool how you hear them behind you, to the left of you, to the right of you. Like it
Yeah.
makes
Yeah. Yeah.
use of the
Yeah.
stereo effect really well, right?
Yep.
What it does awfully is the music, okay? And some of the tracks, there are a few exceptions. Some of the tracks they're just longer and like but I feel like what they did was they're like we have so much memory for music for sound, and they put their essentials, and they had like 2 or 3 tracks. We gotta play the whole thing here because that's like the best track of the game. You know, that's the vibe I get. Like there's a few boss fights that they had to play that full music track because it added so much, like the last level, you know. But to be honest, that I think it's even in the first level, you get this like repeating kind of bass synth noise. It's just like dun 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 dun. That's all it is. It goes up and down, dun 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 dun. Like I'm sounding like Jaws. It's a little better than that, but not much. I mean,
it's a little bit more distinct, but like you said, it's not super far off.
And it's like I've never. Like I said, I look past that. Like I honestly didn't notice it as much when we were talking about Toy Story. Like until that was pointed out to me, I'm like, oh yeah, it does. You know? But I didn't really notice it. I was too busy playing the game. This game, I actually noticed it. So take that as you will. But I heard it, and I wasn't particularly listening for it. I just was like, man,
well,
does this track go anywhere?
I think part of it, like to me, it definitely was noticeable as well. I agree, but it didn't bother me as much as it seems like it bothered you while playing it. But I think one of the reasons why it's more noticeable is because there's a decent amount of quiet moments almost, especially after you like clear out a couple monsters and then like maybe you think like, oh, hey, there's an item over there. How do I get to it? And you know, the game, like we said before, sort of allows you to kind of like explore a little bit. Yes, you're against that unfortunate clock that we were talking about, but at least you can go and find more items that'll help you survive really, or really get through the level. And then you sort of go from there. So I think that's maybe why it's a little bit more noticeable, because there's less noise and monsters and stuff going around. But while you're going through the action, I never really, it didn't bother me that much, mainly because I felt like the game was going, yes, it was limitations of the hardware, but like, I think I was like, okay, even though it's repetitive, even though I can kind of tell that synth bass thing is like boom, 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 and like over and over and over again, I still kind of felt okay with it, because I was like, okay, well, it's still kind of atmosphere. I'll survive, you know, I'll deal with it. But you're not wrong at the same time.
I love that comment. You'll survive. No, you won't.
Yeah. Will you?
This game's hard as hell.
Yes. Let's get to it. Let's okay, so the gameplay itself is, like we said, combos A, B, a little bit of the C buttons and stuff like that. Later on sort of tells you. One, I find it a little bit strange that they only tell you how to do some of the moves later, and there isn't like a move list like there is in like a fighting game, for example, because some of those moves, even though the quote-unquote simpler levels or smaller levels towards the beginning of the game, beginning half of the game, aren't as difficult as later, you could still use some of those moves. Like one of the ones that I really got the hang of with Nadia was that I think it's like forward and A and B at the same time, and she slices up and down, and essentially most of the enemies that you face, especially the ones that are like the large, like sort of spider monsters or whatever, which is the one that I'm kind of facing now. I don't think I knew this move at this time. She slices like all of the arms off, so I don't kill the enemy, but it can't attack me anymore, because it has no arms anymore, and it only attacks with its arms, which I think is
just
sort of
a flesh wound.
Dude, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly like, oh, it's just a flesh wound thing. Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like, I can chop this thing in half, essentially, and as long as it still has a head, it's good to go. And it tries to attack me, but it can't because the arms are off. So I think that's a fun mechanic. I just wish I knew more of those moves earlier, and there was an easier way to find out what those moves were. Did you have, like, was there like a combo that you, like a go-to combo for you? Because that's something I had. I definitely had.
Yes, there was. So like I said earlier, the first move of me running in and swiping in a particular way that would slice things in half. I found myself doing.
Like, look at this guy. I just chopped his arm off. He's still going, and then I chopped his head off.
It's awesome.
It's great. It looks awesome
when it happens.
It's so satisfying. It's great. I don't know if your guy had it, but Nadia had a thing where, like, if I press forward and A on the zombies, it also chopped them in half with her kick, not just B,
Okay.
which is
I
crazy.
don't know
Anyways,
if I think his kicks could do it, but you had to
yeah.
land it particularly. But I will say that my guy didn't have as much cutting action as yours seemed to. Um, I was definitely like a blunt force kind of a thing.
Okay.
Um, I did like an AA. I want to say AAB. Like I did that combo a lot, or ABA, and he did like this like sweeping kick kind of a deal that could
Okay.
potentially like knock them off their feet.
Right.
But it was like my strategy for this game was, especially when I see those big blue ogre looking guys, I
Yeah.
just ran in and I just tapped the buttons and I would like pin them to a wall and just keep going. And then whenever I felt like, okay, that's enough, and I would stop, they would still be moving and be fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I basically just had a rule. I'm like, I just have to lay the hammer on for like 30 seconds straight and just hope they die.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, so those big blue guys are like one of the first enemies that you see. Like I mentioned off the top, I'm like sort of goofy comment at the top. It was like this giant blue man group. Like he's just this giant Hulkian looking thing that is just blue, and I don't know what the hell any, like, unless it's a zombie, I don't know what the hell any of these things are supposed to be. And that's fine.
Right.
Doesn't really matter. You don't have to explain it. They're monsters. This Crowley or Crowley guy is, I don't know, launching monsters across London because evil person. And those things are funny because they take so long to take down sometimes. I I would be hammering away at this enemy for so long, and the only way that I knew that I defeated it was because my adrenaline meter, that blue bar on the other side, went up a notch. That's the only way I knew that I killed it.
Yeah.
I would,
Here's a question for you. How
yeah.
did you fare against, because the bane of my existence was actually the aerial based enemies, like gargoyles and things with wings that move fast, because you get into a fight and they like jump around, right? So you're almost in like this little zone. Think of it like in Zelda Ocarina of Time when you lock onto an enemy, except you don't control when you lock onto an enemy, it does it automatically.
Or what the
And
camera does for the most part.
or yeah, the camera does. But like the enemy will be hopping around you and you'll be trying to attack and you'll be hitting forward, they'll move behind you. It
Yeah.
makes it very easy for them to dodge. And even worse when you get into an area with multiple enemies and they're attacking, like I'm the type of person, I'm locking onto an enemy, I'm ignoring everyone else, I'm going to defeat that enemy, then move on to the next one,
You're focusing.
And this
Yeah.
was like, this, it did not allow you to do that. They would get in, you'd just be missing that person, and then another enemy would hit you. And that, I feel, is just a reflection of the way they chose to do the gameplay. So it's very, the best way to describe how the camera works, if you've ever played Croc, this is exactly what it's like.
Oh, is
It's
it?
kind of,
Okay.
it's locked behind you, and you move the joystick, you move left and right, and it stays behind you sort of, but it also kind of like
Mostly, yeah, but not always.
mostly,
Yeah.
but it tries to account for enemies on screen and stuff. So sometimes it gets a little wonky and pulls back. I would say it definitely was hard at first, but it gets easier as you get used to it. It's
Yeah.
kind of that situation. You need to play through a few levels, and it gets easier. It's still not ideal. And this is why I was saying earlier, why did they throw attacks into the C buttons? Because
Yeah.
you don't use the C buttons really, other than you can jump with them, but you could have easily put the jump button on anything else. I mean,
Yeah. Like
I mean,
it's
I don't know.
I know
Or
the
even just
control.
limit it to the down C button as a jump or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the positioning of the C buttons doesn't make sense. Why is down, which the jump maybe you don't use a ton, but somehow it felt like it was more intuitive for down C to be the jump button, and yet it is left C, and I don't understand that.
Yeah,
Like I don't.
So it felt.
It didn't feel right.
I won't. It didn't feel right. The jump isn't really like, for those
Good?
expecting that it's a
It's
platformer
not
that you're
good?
jumping. It's
Yeah.
not. It's kind of like,
It's a hop.
I'm
It's a little.
trying
It's a
to.
little. A
It's
little hop.
You know how in Zelda you hop over a gap and it automatically does it for you, and you
Yes.
just kind of.
Yes.
It's not a jump per se so much as you're skipping. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
what it is. You're not jumping. You have momentum. You move forward. You're always moving forward, and it's left C button. It it doesn't. It's not the worst thing I've ever felt, but it certainly could have been better and a
But it's
little
close.
thought
Yeah.
out a little more. I would have loved to see the down C button being the jump,
Yeah.
okay, and then using the left and right C buttons to change the camera angle because this game kind of desperately needs that ability. Um,
Yeah, because it's now I'm the type of person where on any sort of third person action game that isn't a shooter where you're pretty much always behind your character because the reticle and all that kind of stuff. I'm the person who always wants the camera, or for the most part, unless it's a certain traversal element, wants the camera behind my character. So in
oh
some
yeah,
ways, I was okay with this. Like some people are okay with, oh, every once in a while, I'll just sort of, it'd be fine if I'm to the left or to the right or whatever. And I just pretty much just always want it that way. Like even in racing games, I'm not playing first person. I'm playing behind. I want to play a third person version of my vehicle. One, so I can
yeah.
see my vehicle, and two, I don't know, it just feels more like a video game that way, I guess. So this has that, but yeah, the way that the controls and the camera sort of works, some areas it makes sense, other areas, or if you're going to press left or right to sort of, dodge enemies, then the camera is sort of like not sure where you want to go or how you want to do it. And I'm just like, oh, I feel like they want to go with like fluid combos and movement, but it's a little bit Resident Evil, but it's also not that tanky. So it's sort of this weird
Yes,
in between
yes.
awkward control. So I'm not
It's
really sure how to solve it, but there's a middle ground there somewhere. I just don't know if it was possible at this time.
I think I still think my solution of the left and right C sticks would probably solve that issue
It would
because
help.
I would say 80% of the time the camera's working okay. It's
Yes,
fine.
yes, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
that it's that 20% where you're facing a wall and you need to turn around and all of a sudden your control scheme, which it to be honest, it doesn't feel tanky until you're in a situation where you're like the camera
And
is turning and then you start backing up like your tank controls and I'm like, "Wait, what?" And then it throws you off a little bit cuz you didn't have to deal with that.
yeah,
It's hard to describe, but it's sometimes tanky, but the majority of the time it's not. It's like it's
yes.
tanky when the game's camera doesn't know what it's doing and it gets caught in
It's
geometry or something.
it's tanky when the game feels like it wants to be tanky. Is really
Yeah, yeah,
it's like,
basically. But I would say generally it's not bad. It's definitely
it's
not the
not
worst
not
I've played,
bad.
but it's just
Yeah,
not
it's not
ideal.
bad, and it's not all this. We're saying all this stuff because I think to me everything else around those limitations and around those sort of like awkward points works for me. I thought this game was pretty
Mhm.
good. And please, I know I keep referencing the video version, but if you haven't watched the video versions, please look at what is being put up on the screen right now.
Yes.
It is an abominable snowman, literally
Yes.
just called Snowman, and then they changed his name to Yeti after you beat him. It is. I did this in one shot. I'm going to play this entire boss battle through here. I don't know how I did it. I think it's just because I had a bunch of health or whatever. But like some of the boss battles, they change the camera angle, which I appreciate. Something different.
Mhm.
It's sort of, but the controls are the same. And it doesn't quite work. But at least they tried something different. Anyways.
Yeah, they had that like I don't know if you were going to go on a tangent about the boss fights, but that is
Yeah,
something
let's talk
I'm
about the
actually going
boss
to
fights.
praise this game about
Yeah.
because there was not a single boss except for the last one that I was like I really love these. I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. There was not a single boss I disliked except for the last one a
The
little
last
bit.
one. Yeah.
I loved all of these bosses.
I
Because you
didn't
had
I
the
didn't like the snowman one because I
You
found
didn't like it. Okay.
I did
Oh, well, but the,
yeah.
the the game, the gameplay, like with the snowman, you have to throw TNT, and you have
Yeah.
to they all kind of function this way. You're not directly attacking the boss, except for the last one.
Yes, yes.
You're doing something with the environment to hurt the boss.
Yeah.
But I love that it's an abominable snowman because that's just hilarious to me. I'm gonna shout out because I'm making a 3D platformer, Abo and Sierra. It's like Banjo Kazooie. I've been working on that. I like it's all about Abo is an abominable snowman. I love abominable snowmans. I love cryptids. The whole game is about finding cryptid creatures and stuff. Sasquatch is in there. Aliens are in there. Like it's so cool. I thought this boss was so unexpected because I was like, you're looking at this boss like, this is the second boss, right? Or is this the first one?
Second or third? I can't remember. Second or third? Yeah.
I think it's the second boss because the first one is like these like
Giant.
they're not plants,
like,
eel
no,
things that come.
Yeah, they're either eel heads with like with big teeth, or they're like giant. If you've ever seen Willow, the movie, there's two like monsters that just like honestly they look like giant penises because it was made in like the early 80s with like teeth and stuff. It's kind of like these giant serpent type of things. That's what they look like.
Yeah, and they come out of the water and like you have to break wooden boards to like drop on their head something. I don't remember exactly.
You have to like chop away at the wood so that something on top of them topples over, which is similar to the snowman, where you have to go and blow up TNT so that ice falls on them.
Yep.
What's good about the boss battles in general, other than the last one, which is a little bit more of a direct hit type of thing, like you said, is that it does something different with the game, and I like that. It's variety, right? So why do the same thing over and over again? Change the camera angle. The controls are the same, but change the camera angle. I appreciate all that stuff.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna stop you right here because what you just saw on this screen right now, on his gameplay, okay, this is why I complained about the fog, okay, because we were like, oh, we don't mind the fog.
And then
this is why I didn't like the fog. Yeah, you fell in the water. That was not what I was talking about.
I know.
There's a part where the monsters throw barrels at you from a distance.
Yes.
And you'll be walking in the fog, and you'll be like, what is that? And all of a sudden you get hit with a barrel, and you're like, mother grabber! Like, they just knock you down, you know? It's not detrimental, but if you're clinging to that last bit of health, it's very annoying, and you got to memorize where that is, because the fog is not helping you. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
No, what was I saying? Oh, is the reason why the snowman one didn't work for me more specifically is because it feels like some of the boss battles are a little bit more relentless almost. And like you were mentioning with some of the characters that are a little too fast or they're flying around or whatever, some of the enemies move a little too fast for what you're able to do with what the controls allow you to do. If you're able to get to the monsters early enough or get to them quick enough or easy enough or whatever, then fighting them I found is pretty fun. I found going to different environments is pretty good. Every stage feels just a little bit different, looks a little bit different. You know, it's raining or it's snowing or whatever. Like there's variety here. And then about halfway through the game, they introduce new monsters, which is fun. And you're basically chasing down this Crowley guy the entire time. Mm-hmm. And you're finding new items and new weapons and new settings and like all this thing. All these things we're talking about that sort of like frustrated us. I still had fun playing this game, even though a lot of the time it kicked my ass. Like I still found it to be pretty good.
You look at the underlying package in this game, and you think there's a good game there. There's something there that's good. You know, it's just a little. I won't even say that it's unpolished. I think it was just there were choices that were made, which is why I would like to go and visit this game on the PlayStation or PC. I keep saying PlayStation. PC is what I would do it on. But I want to visit it on that different hardware to see if the experience is improved, or if the N64 version was improved. Because the N64 version, as far as I know, is one of the later versions, if not the latest version, of the original game. Because I don't know if it came to Dreamcast at all. That could be the only like wrench in the
or whatever.
release. But this, as far as I know, usually when a game releases way later, it would be like the definitive version, you know?
Yeah.
And
Director's cut.
yeah, it would do something. As far as I know, this doesn't add any content. In fact, it takes
Yeah.
away content. It changes things graphically. I I like the look. I think it
Me
looks
too.
really
Me too.
cool.
Yeah.
It's like it's hard to explain because sometimes when N64 games go for that gritty, realistic kind of tone, it looks really muddy and
Mm-hmm.
just blurry and awful. The texture work just shines. They did a great
Yeah.
job, and that's something that PlayStation games often get right is the textures because they have such a large texture cache compared to the 64. But they translated those textures phenomenally, and if you actually look, it looks way better than the PlayStation version, which is super cool. I just think it looks great. Uh, I don't remember what we were talking about. I went on a tangent there, but
We're both going on
yeah, it
tangents. It's
looks
all good.
great.
I think the other thing that is a frustration that limits what you're able to do with combos and things like that is the way that they let you access items. I have a little sort of like side note that is similar to the sort of like opening crawl thing I'll tell you about in a sec, but accessing items is a little bit awkward because you need to focus on these monsters, but you also need to like change
Yeah.
your items and holding onto R and shifting through them with the joystick and stuff. It doesn't quite work. I do like the variety of items. There's ones where like the saw, for example, basically gives you the ability to chop the monsters into pieces, which I thought was hilarious because I thought like, oh, the character's going to throw a saw and it's going to cut the character in half or something like that. Nope, it literally like activates this like superpower in you where every time you hit them, a limb falls off or something like that. And I love that stuff. I love the sort of like dismantling of the monsters. Like they actually have multiple pieces in like within the way that every monster is built where you can chop the arm off, the leg off, the
Mm-hmm.
head off or whatever. And not all characters work exactly the same. Not all monsters are exactly the same. Just because you chop the guy's arm off doesn't mean he's going to die. Just because you chop that zombie's head off doesn't mean he's going to die. Just because you knocked him on the ground doesn't mean he's going to die. He's going to get back up in a second. And I like that stuff. I thought that was kind of cool. The interesting part, which I don't know if you found all the weapon upgrades or not. I don't know if you found any of those for your guy. Did you find
I
those?
found some of them. I don't know how many there
Yeah.
are. I found at least two.
Yeah. Okay. So I
Um,
found two. I don't know if there's more. I didn't look up if there was, but I stumbled upon them, which is a little interesting. I don't know if that's great game design or level design because it definitely does make a difference later in the game.
well,
Gives
if
you a little
there's
bit more.
only two and we both stumbled upon them because I did the exact same thing, it's intentional, right?
I
So
guess,
it
but if
must
what, but
direct
what,
you in a place that you
but
could
what if you?
potentially miss it, but it's unlikely. I don't know. It
Yeah,
could be tricking you,
I
which
think
is good
one of them.
design.
Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. I don't know. Which overthinking it.
Yeah,
Speaking
it's
of
like
Jiggy's YouTube
da-da-da-da-da-da.
page, yeah. Check out his overthinking it series. What's interesting is I don't know if you noticed this too. Similar to how I noticed the opening crawl thing. Whatever items you have in your inventory, when you pick up the upgrade to your weapon, sword or staff or whichever character you're playing as. So keep this in mind, people, if you are playing this. I don't recall exactly what stage it is. When you pick up that item upgrade or your weapon upgrade, every item in your inventory is doubled. So if you have 5 health upgrades, you now have 10. If you have 5 grenades, you now have 10. Every single time that happened to me. Even when I like
What?
died and I needed to go back and redo that level or whatever, that's what happened. And I was like, this is so weird that one, it doesn't tell you, and two, sure, I'll take it. I don't care because I need every item I can get to
Yeah,
defeat these
basically.
monsters. So
Let's go into the items. Let's go into the items. Let's
let's
talk
go into
about
the
them.
items.
So
So
you,
there's 2 health upgrades, right?
yep, two
There's a
health.
small health and like a full health,
They're
essentially.
like orbs.
Yeah, they're like little orbs. There's one that's like, I guess the half health could be, I don't know what it would be in Mario, but the full health is like picking up the tomato in Kirby, where it gives you full health. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it reminded me of. What
You
else?
get two
There's
guns. You get two guns. There's like a pistol and there's like one that's more of a was it
I
dual?
don't
Is it dual? You like shoot around you. It's
you
bizarre. It's almost
you
like a
circle
rapid fire
around you
just
and fire. Yeah, and you
but it
fire like
looks
5
like
times or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
it looks like a quadruple barrel
yeah.
pistol. is basically what it looks like.
Yeah.
I found the pistol was so that scene in Indiana Jones where the or the whatever, the guy
Yes.
comes out with the sword and he's swinging it around, and Indiana Jones just takes out his gun and just shoots him.
Shoots him.
That's what
Yep.
this game makes you feel like with monsters, especially like I found the gun particularly useful with the sea monster that comes out of the like rivers and stuff.
It's like the only effective way to kill them. It's the only
Yeah,
guaranteed way because it's one
because
shot. You can do it from a
they
distance.
reach
Yeah,
super far, so you need a distance attack, and you just
I agree.
boom shoot them in the face, and they're like, ah! And they
Yeah.
die. Death to all who
There's
oppose me.
yeah. You mentioned it earlier. There's like a TNT or like a dynamite sort of thing. That's just basically like
Mm-hmm.
throwing a grenade. Really, impact when it hits the
Yep.
ground.
You have the little
There's
caltrap
yeah,
mines or whatever.
yeah. There's a mine which was good at some points, but other points it was like, well, if they don't walk into it, it's not going to blow up. So I didn't use it as much as I thought I would. One of the most effective things was like the lightning bolt, which basically just stuns enemies around you, and you can just attack them. They basically just like stop moving. So that was pretty good.
The last
Unfortunately,
the last two that you're about to mention, these are the
Go
best
for it.
items for sure.
Go for it.
You have this is the order. I think the best one I'll save for last because the second
Okay.
to best one is is it a torch? Just a torch? It's fire.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. It's just a torch. Yeah.
So it's like you light the ground on fire and you send a shockwave of fire down, and it will hit an enemy and light them on fire, and they basically like they'll keep walking towards you like they're gonna attack, but they just slowly disappear and burn up. They can't
Yeah,
actually
they
hurt
just turn
you
into
once they're
ash.
hit with it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But
it's a
the
cool
reason
effect.
why I say, even though it's a great move and it does basically insta kill enemies,
Yeah.
the snowflake
Yes.
is better because it frees. So just listen to this description. You throw it on the ground, it makes a giant shockwave. It freezes all enemies within that shockwave, and they basically turn to ice, and then they auto die. Like they just like break,
Yep.
they shatter. You can go up and you can hit them and break them faster if you'd like, but they'll shatter after like 5 seconds or something, anyways. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
If you had that, you were winning.
That one you get a little bit later into the game, at least the second half of the game, I would say. I think you get it somewhere around there. The reason why I didn't love the torch is because if you got too close to the enemy, it also damaged you. And I found that to be very counterintuitive. I didn't it makes sense because if you touch fire in other points of the game, it chops off your health a little bit. Fair enough, you're on fire. But it was like, oh, I threw it, and then I had to like back off a bunch of like I have to hop backwards like 5 times. Otherwise, I'd be like, oh, well, I just injured myself. So what's the point of using that item? But yeah, I agree. The snowflake's really good. The bomb for the most part, like the TNT thing, was pretty good. The guns are fun. I immediately thought of Indiana Jones just like you did. So I agree.
I mean, it's how you feel, right? He just pulls it out and just like, that's it.
And
They're done.
what's funny too is like when you press like an item to use it, like the monsters like can't damage you. So it's almost exactly like that, like in the movie where he just boom, one shot, done. So I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, I just wish it was easier to sift through the items. Like I know it wasn't a thing to have like a weapon wheel or whatever at that point, but something
it
like
has
that.
one sort of.
Sort of. I mean, yes,
It's kind of
turns on a
it's
wheel,
like,
but
how do you describe? So here's how it works. You have an item in the bottom right corner. Okay. First off, the game never tells you how to use that item.
Correct. Yeah.
You just press Z and you
Or
figure
how
it
to
out at
switch
some
them.
point.
Or how to switch. It doesn't tell you how to switch them.
Or to switch, yeah. So the game never tells you how to do this. You just figure it out, and it's not intuitive. You just figure it out from trying because you're like,
Yeah.
I have a gun. How do I use that gun?
Yeah.
Okay? You're just dying to use that gun. So basically, it'll be in the bottom right corner. You hold the R button, and then is it the flick of the joystick
Yes.
at that point? And then you flick the joystick, and it cycles between your items, right? And then you press Z to use them. The reason why this sucks is because when you're in the middle of a fight, like Dave said, you can't stop and switch between items. Like you have to look and be like, oh, what's this? Oh, where's the lightning bolt? I need to use the lightning bolt. And you have to cycle through like 10 items before you find the lightning bolt. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
one thing I just saw on the screen here was the green potion thing that you can throw down, or the
Yes.
acid, or
Yes. Oh yeah,
whatever it
that's one
is.
we forgot. Yeah.
But I've never used that one.
So that one gets the monsters to fight each other. That's what that does.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
But what's
I did
it
use it,
doesn't
but I couldn't get it to work, and I was like, "What is going on?"
because it doesn't work with every monster, which doesn't really make any sense. So
I just gave up on it and assumed it was trash.
I didn't use it that much. Honestly, I didn't use it that much. Again, it's so it fine. I keep thinking, like in the back of my head, I keep saying like I actually had a good time playing this game, but there's all these things that we keep pointing out that
Yeah,
are
just
like
it's
I. It sounds like we're shitting on the game, but honestly, I still think that it's worth trying. I still think that it's worth playing. I do think that there's some like we're in the spooky season sort of stuff that we're trying to do here.
yeah,
Like I think it does work. Like there's a lot of like really uneasy, unsettling type of settings that you work through. I think the monsters are unique, even though they don't all make sense, and they don't need to be explained necessarily. But like, I think the setting and the sound and the music and the darkness of it, like I liked all of that. I just wish that some of the smaller things were ironed out a little bit better. Maybe that's limitations of like even the controller even could have been part of that reason. I don't know what it is, but
yeah. You just feel that if you had two joysticks,
yes,
this game would have played so much better. And
yeah,
that's just the end. That's the end all be all. Which is why I kept bringing up PlayStation specifically over like PC. But I guess I'm gonna have the
right,
same effect on PC because I was thinking the DualShock with the two joysticks. I don't know if it used them, but it feels like if it did, it would have had a big advantage in my book.
yeah.
Um,
But if this like unreleased Nightmare Creatures 3 would have happened, that would
mhm,
have been implemented, and it would have created a better opportunity for things like that, because you would have at
right?
least ironed out some of those details that we're saying sort of annoyed us, or at least sort of, but also that adds to the difficulty of the game, right? Like it's similar to
Yeah,
Resident Evil, where like Resident Evil, part of the reason why it's difficult is because there's tank controls, or at least for the older ones. Your inventory is limited, which means your items are limited. Like all of those things add to the tension, or your ammo is limited. All those types of things for Resident Evil add to that stuff. Whereas with this, I think it was like mostly controls is what
yeah.
added to the
But
difficulty.
at the same time, like, so we're playing this for the podcast, right? Specifically, and spooky season. We're like perfect. It's like the spooky game on the N64,
Yeah, yeah,
and we
yeah.
picked this out. And so I'm going for. I want to get the whole experience. I want to make sure that I play through this game. We both have lives. I got a job. I got a wife. I got a cat. I'm getting a dog. I was like, I make my own content like all the time, and I'm
Yep,
trying to like balance all these things, and I'm trying to just play games and have fun, right? So
yep.
I'm like, I'm gonna play easy mode because I want to get through this
Oh,
game, and it was still freaking hard.
that is a great point. I completely forgot about that.
The game has two modes, hard and easy, and easy's
Go,
hard. So what is hard? Nightmare?
please, people, if you play this game, play easy mode. Please. It is not easy. Just like Jiggy was just saying, it is not easy. But do yourself a favor. Don't try to be a hero. Do not play hard mode.
Don't be a hero. Don't be a
Don't be a
hero.
hero.
That's the
And
moral of the
also don't
story.
use the map. I found the map. If you're looking at the screen now, the map is
I
not.
didn't even know there was a map.
Well, that's part of the whole like adrenaline meter thing. I was like, did I go this way? Did I go that way? Whatever.
That's
Like
hilarious. I just
it's
ran as fast as possible, and I was like, "Did I go down this tunnel? I don't think so. Did I go down this one? Yeah. Okay, I gotta backtrack."
yeah. Oh, there's a blood stain there. Yeah, I guess I did go that way. Um, Other small details about like the sort of the graphics and the way it looks and stuff is this is very simple and definitely something that was in other games even previous to this and around this time. It's all these like little details that I really appreciate in games where like they didn't have to do this, but like you kill a monster and you walk over their blood pool and now you have like footprints of blood.
Footsteps. Yeah, that's
It's
cool.
it's not a big deal. It doesn't change the game in any way, but I like those little details. That kind of stuff. Again, they didn't have to do it, but they did, and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much else I could say about it in that way, but that was I thought that was kind of fun. So, I think I liked this game. I think if it was a little bit easier, even if like the enemies were a tiny bit easier, it's okay if the rest of the game and the controls and stuff wasn't fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that would have helped a little bit. So this won't be for everybody, I don't think, because it's a little bit relentless and because it's a little bit awkward at times. But for the most part, I still like this game. And I
Can I tell
still,
you what I think people are going to
yeah.
this is what people are going to do, right? They're going to play this game and they're going to be like, "That oh, this is fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like they're saying, it's not so bad. It plays okay. It's not perfect, but it
It's got
works."
cool ideas.
And
Sure. Yeah.
they'll get through it. They'll be playing. They might get to the end after much trial and tribulation, and then they're going to fight that last boss. And 9 out of 10 people are going to say, "Well, I basically beat the game. I guess I can be done now." Because that boss is going to make you, and if this is just me, you tell me, but that boss was one of the hardest bosses I've ever fought in a game. Like,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
talking like beyond Dark Souls level crap. Like, this was like stupid hard. You can only, it basically, like, all the bosses leading up there, the boss before him was like really cool, which we didn't specifically
Yes.
say, but he's like
Yes.
basically Jack the Ripper, and he throws knives at you. And
It
he's
is
like,
Jack the Ripper,
it's
you're right.
cool,
Yeah.
and you just like go back and forth between these switches to like put spikes through him.
Yeah.
It's awesome,
Cool
but
ideas. Cool ideas for the boss battles for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool ideas and unique characters that
Yeah.
just kind of throw it out there.
Yeah.
But when you're fighting actually Crowley himself, he turns into a giant gargoyle-like creature.
Yep.
Okay, spoilers. And he flies at you, and you can only attack him using combo. The game specifically says combos only. So you can only like melee attack him with your A and B and C button combos. But he'll be flying around and he'll be moving like crazy. And you tell me your experience right now, because I'll tell you how I beat it and you're not going to believe it.
I honestly just I did a lot of button mashing. Like it was not sophisticated. I didn't think about it all that much. It took me a bunch of different tries. I thought I had the game down pat and I thought I was like, yeah, no problem, I got this. And then yeah, it was a struggle to get to that point, but I did not have an easy time with that. And it was I almost did exactly what you said, where I was like, yeah, I made it this far, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Jiggy said he beat
Yeah.
it already, so I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So please tell me your story. Mine was very uneventful. Even though the event of defeating him felt like, oh, thank God. The actual event of actually defeating Crowley was not. It was one of the only times where I was like, yeah, this entire experience is actually not that enjoyable. Whereas the rest of the time, at least I was like, well, at least I'm enjoying at least doing some of these combos, or at least seeing some of these areas, or doing that mini boss or whatever. I didn't enjoy my time with the final boss. So go for it.
The final boss sucks. The area's cool.
Straight up.
He looks cool.
Yes.
So
Yep.
here's what happened. I fought and I fought and I fought. Okay, I fought like my life depended on it. I was battling this guy for hours. Okay, like most of my time in this game probably was dedicated to that guy, to that boss fight. Okay, and I'm fighting. I got him down to like a quarter of his health left, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, finally, I'm gonna beat this guy. Like I have it. And my game, okay, I got stuck. I glitched. So there's a part where it's like 4 columns. It must have been where he was standing on or something. It's on fire, and it's basically like the only section on this rooftop that it's on fire. It's in the middle. You can't go into it, right? You go around it. It's
Right.
basically like a column of fire.
Yep.
Okay, the game glitched and put me inside of that, and I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of it. Okay, and so he would just come and hit me, and so at this point I just die. I'm ticked because it took me forever to get his health down that low because I'm sitting there fighting him. So I went into the cheat menu and I put unlimited items on, and I just mashed the health items every time I lost health until I beat him because I was done with it. I was so frustrated at that point. I was like, there's got to be a way. And I looked it up. But like on the flip side, of that, I don't often use the cheat menus in games, right? This
Yes.
is a very interesting cheat menu. Okay, there's
Yeah,
only
I
three
wanted to
things
ask you
you can
about it.
do.
Yeah, I
There's
wanted to
only
ask you
three
about it
things
because
you can do.
I didn't experiment with this at all. So
Ah,
what are these
yes.
odd little things? And there's one in particular that you told me about that I feel
Okay.
like I want to go back and try
Yeah.
it, but I haven't yet.
That is the only like interesting thing. So you have the option for unlimited items, okay? But
Okay.
here's the thing about this. The game does not specify that it's items that's unlimited. It just says unlimited. And then you can turn it on or off. And so at first I'm like, is this health? Is this my first gut reaction was the combo meter, like maybe that's unlimited and so I don't have to worry about that
Right.
anymore.
Right.
Uh but then I hopped into a random level, which that's the other thing is a level select. So I hop
Okay.
into a random level and it's still draining, my health's still draining. I'm like, okay. And it took me a while and then I finally figured out, oh, I'm using items. It just gives you max items and you never run out. I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I can work with that. And so
Yep.
then I navigate back to the final boss and beat it. Okay. But anyways, there is one special mode and it is play as monster. Okay? And here I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be like you pick a monster and you can play through the game as that monster, right?
Right.
Nope. It is every level you are a different monster. So the first level, for example, you play as one of those giant like they're like bugs. The big like right now they're playing on the screen actually.
Yeah, it's like a
One of
big
those things they
giant.
have,
Yeah, it's a
praying
bug. Yeah, it's
mantis, praying
praying
mantis
mantis,
kind of a
almost like a
deal. I don't
brown
know.
praying mantis.
So you
Yeah.
play as that, and you have more limited moves and stuff, but you're stronger. You're definitely stronger.
Right, and you
Okay,
can
and
move around, you hop around and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you're fast too. But so it translates. The interesting thing is it translates the monster's abilities. So you're literally playing as what those models can do.
Right.
So what does this mean? It means when you get to the level where you have to play as a zombie, it sucks. Because you move slow and your attacks do like nothing. And
Nothing.
you have to
Yeah.
fight all the other enemies just the same. I enjoyed playing as the big ogre guy, the blue guy, because he was
Okay.
fast and really strong. He's just like, "Blah." But yeah, it's pretty funny. So I did not go through every level and see what monster it gave me, but I did quite a few because I was like, I want to see all the different monsters that it'll let me do. And the
It's
zombie
a
was
cool
by far the
idea.
worst one.
I
But
can
yeah, it was
imagine.
it was unique. So that was
That's
a fun little
that's
discovery.
yeah. Why have big head mode when you can have random monster mode? Really.
Yeah, some of those monsters have big heads anyway, so who cares?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's a fun idea. It's something a little bit different, which is cool. I should do that because we both played this on our EverDrives, I believe. So,
Oh, I actually had nope. I actually have the cartridge this time.
you had the
That's what
cartridge.
this. Yep.
Ooh,
And for those watching the video, I have it positioned perfectly on my desk
strategically.
here. Yes, it is there. So
um,
can I just say this that those who are listening to the podcast, okay, A, if you want to see how attractive we are, you definitely have to go check out the Remember 64 Show YouTube and go watch this, okay? I've got a sweet backdrop. Dave's got a sweet backdrop. You got to look at the stuff, the collections behind us, okay? I got it. I got my N64 games. I got my GameCube collection. I got a sweet Sonic poster. Lots of Banjo DK stuff. Look at Dave's got over there. I see
I
a
got
lot of
Mario
Banjo stuff on the
Paint,
top shelf. Mario Paint.
Ninja
I see
Turtles.
the Ninja Turtles pictures. I noticed that earlier. I was looking at those. That's pretty dope. Um, where does it go? Oh. All this to point out. All this to point out are sweet shirts. We both have sweet
Oh
shirts.
yes, correct.
So
Boom.
I will not
Boom.
describe them to you. If you would like to see what our shirts look like, you need to go subscribe to the YouTube and watch the video, and it will be at a later point.
And later
So
in
you
the
gotta watch-
episode
You
point.
can't skip. You got to watch the whole thing.
Also, we're not paying attention to the time, so this is what it is.
It is what it is.
Okay, so as we wrap up, sort of talking about nightmare creatures again, I think it's worth a try, despite the limitations. I think it's cool. I think it's a good Halloween spoopy season type of game.
Hmm.
And you could definitely do a lot worse with 3D action games in the 64. So, um,
Definitely.
I think work through some of the technical limitations as far as controls go and stuff. But overall, I still had a pretty good time. If we are going to give it a little bit of a score, Jiggy, where would you sit this thing?
Um, well, I'm wrestling between 6.5 and 7. I'm
Okay.
somewhere in that range out of 10.
Okay.
Because six being, let's say 5 is a fail, 6 is a
Yeah.
pass, which is kind of like 6 is my average score. So I would
Sure.
say it's a little bit above average because I think it's got a lot of cool stuff going for it, like that bring it just a little bit above that. But it's by no means a great game. It's okay. It's okay. And
Yeah.
you'll have fun with it. It's definitely worth a play. It's just one of those games that once you play it, you're probably never going to go back to it. I mean, realistically, like it might get you engaged. You might want to check out the sequel, which was never on the 64. But it's one of those. It piques your interest enough that you're like, oh, I want to check this out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to give it a pretty solid 7. I think I'm going to sit right there because I think it could be higher if it wasn't for the things that we were talking about that sort of were
Yeah.
limiting your sort of access to being more fluid in the game and things like that. But other than that, everything else, aside from the final boss fight,
Yep.
to me was interesting, was unique, was cool, felt dark, which is what they were going for. So I think largely they succeeded with this. And I think that is worthy of a bit of a playthrough, at least in the first few stages. See if it clicks with you. If it doesn't, fair enough, that's fine. But Nightmare Creatures N64, PlayStation 1. There's a sequel for PlayStation as well. I'm interested. I'm curious to see what they did with the sequel. I'm gonna look up some videos and sort of see what that's like,
I did
because
see some videos. It did look pretty cool.
yeah, see, so that's what I want to do. I didn't do that type of homework for this episode, but I will continue to do that. But
I will
yeah,
say
I don't.
this:
Yeah.
Crowley's alive.
Oh shit! You know what? I kind of suspected that because like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's worth your time, I think. So Nightmare Creatures, give it a shot. But before we let everybody go, Jiggy, what are we doing in late October? Late October 2023, because depending on when you're listening to this episode, just keep that in mind. But
Yeah, but
we'll
you
do
can
something
always
cool
look
and
back.
special. You can always go
That's my
back. That's
name,
true. I'm
Jiggy.
gonna.
Look back. Just
There we go.
take a little look back.
Take a
Yeah,
look
we
back.
are we are going to be doing some cool things. We've got on the 20th. That's the date we picked, and we're hoping we stick to it. But the plan that's the plan, and we rarely
Adulthood,
divert.
life.
We
Yeah,
rarely divert from the plan, so I think that's
yeah.
pretty safe to say that that's
It's a
going to
Friday
happen.
night. It's a Friday
It's a
night, so
Friday night. You come on, come join us for a good time. We're going to be doing a live stream. It's essentially a live Remember 64 episode, okay?
exactly.
And we're going to be playing Scooby Doo Classic Creep Capers. We're going to be trying to play through the whole game in its entirety. So the game itself is somewhere between like 2.5 to 4 hours, depending
Mhm.
on how smart we are or how hard the controls seem to be for us. It's going to be entertaining. We're going to have giveaways. We're doing a fundraiser. I don't know if we talked about that. It's gonna be a good time. I have a costume. Dave's I don't know if he's gonna have a costume, but I have a costume, and I'm gonna be honest, it's sick. Okay, I saw it at Walmart. Okay, when I saw this thing, it was so first I found one. Okay, let me just say this. I'm not gonna tell you what
Yes.
it is because that's a
Don't.
spoiler.
Please don't.
But once you
Please
see
don't.
it, you'll be like, "Oh, that's so you." Okay. I saw this thing at Walmart. Like, it was all just dismantled. Like, it was at one time folded up into a neat little package. It
Mm.
was all just dismantled everywhere. And I was like, my gosh, this is cool. And I was like, is this my size? I was like, because
Oh.
costumes are never in your size. And
nah.
I looked at it, and it was my size. And I was like, ah, man, I wonder if they have any other ones, okay? And then I go and look,
Try not to spoil it. I
and
love it.
I went, and if they did, they were gone. I think they might have had one other character, we'll say.
Okay.
And I didn't want that character. I was like, no, this is the one. This is the one I want. And I found another one that was neat in the package, and it was my size. And I was like, sold. And my wife was rolling her eyes the whole time. But she's like, okay, whatever makes you happy.
You
and
do
I'm like,
you, buddy. Whatever. Yeah, sure,
this
dude.
makes me happy.
Whatever makes you happy, man.
So
Fine.
I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped for it. It's so me, and if you want to see what it is, man, you're gonna have to come on this live stream because it is legendary. I'm thinking I'm gonna be making a little promo too for the live stream coming up. And I had an idea to use the costume, and I'm like, should I give it away before the live stream? Just before, so that everyone
or tease
can
it like a piece of it, you know,
tease it. That's tease it.
Just like a little,
because this won't, like, I'll definitely be wearing this thing more.
just in general,
just more. It was so perfect. I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Well, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to find out.
Great.
But we're gonna So you're right. It is essentially going to be a live episode. It also is going to be up on the feed. But please join us live. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're just going to have a goofy time with the Scooby-Doo gang and each other, and it should be good. So find that Remember 64 on YouTube. Jiggy Look Back on YouTube as well, like you mentioned at the top of the episode. Pulling up both streams will be very interesting as well, because I think we're going to be doing fun, different stuff while also playing the same game. And you can also check out both of our goofy and apparently perfect costumes. So that will be something to look forward to. But other than that, everybody, give us a rating on your podcast feed if you get a chance. Support us on Patreon, of course, if you want to or if you can. But that's pretty much it. We're going to move on to our next episode and our next recording and our next spooky game. And then past that, Remember 64 lives on, everybody. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. And we will see you next time on Remember 64.
Let me just say, okay? So I say this sometimes.
Yes,
but this is new to Dave, because the YouTube channel is still fresh for you, right?
Yes,
it is. YouTube is a powerful tool, and we must utilize that tool. So let me just end the video by saying this, okay? Hit that subscribe button because I told you to. Drop a like because I told you to. And hit that notification bell because I told you to. That is all.
Boom. That is all. Clearly he's done this before, and I have not. So thanks everyone for watching, for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. Ciao.
Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, wait, I can do that. Also, I can do this.
He will unleash his demonic brood onto the streets.